Okay, everyone, welcome to Chief Chat. This is Mark Kern. I'm the lead designer on Ember, and I am doing a chat about the updates we just posted. We posted an animation update of the Thumper, which is kind of like your mining pet in the game, as well as a gameplay doc outlining the general features of the player's Omniframe, which is the exoskeleton that you wear when you're playing the game, fighting the bad guys, and escorting the Thumper with its precious cargo back to base. I want to welcome everybody to the channel. I am recording this using OBS, and the video will be available on Monday on our YouTube channel, and I'll also post it to the forums and the blog. Some ground rules before we get started. Make sure that when you're asking your questions that you give people time to hear an answer before you ask the next question. We don't want to really fill the screen with a lot of questions. So you can get a couple of questions on there and I can take them maybe 3 or 4 at a time. But please don't scroll the screen too much so I can still see the questions when they're being asked and I can make sure I can get to everybody's. Okay, so why don't we begin? What is the first question you guys have, either about the animations we're doing, the Thumper, or the Omniframe? Yeah, so the Thumper in our game is really more of a mech. And the mech, which stands for Mechanically Enhanced Kinetics, also happens to be my initials, Mark Edward Kern. And the Thumper in our version is, instead of being a static object like it was in Firefall, is more of a personality. It's more like a pet. It can have emotes. We have a laugh animation, for example, for the Thumper. And it will drop down out of a dropship, and it will start mining where you're collecting resources, and you'll have to defend against waves of Tsihu enemy and their Kaiju, as well as their beast form, in order to protect the Thumper while it's mining. When you think you've mined enough resources, and it's a real game of push and pull, because unlike Firefall, which had like a definitive end, you can kind of push to mine longer, and the longer you mine, the more chances you'll get rare isotopes popping out. But the resistance is going to grow too. It's going to become harder and harder to defend the Thumper. And when you've reached the point where you need to cut bait, you can trigger an EMP, which will give you enough of a pause to get the Thumper to start running back to the nearest player-built facility, while you have to escort and protect it along the way because you're going to be jumped on the way there. The nearest facility really depends on player activity in the zone. There may be a nearby base that they built, or there may not, where you're thumping and you have to make a long trek back, which is going to make it a really hard fight. So that's an incentive for players to build bases throughout the zone in the specified locations that we'll set out in the zone to make sure that they're not cheesable. Omniframe modeling is currently in the blockout stage. So the Omniframe is the player's battle frame, and a blockout stage is where we just test proportions and generally how the major shapes work. And Joe Solo has been working on that along with Tommaso, our lead concept artist, who has been helping with a bunch of scribbled notes and things about how to move stuff around and how to get the stuff to work. I'm inputting some stuff on general proportion, stance, the look that I want out of it. I want kind of like a muscle car look, kind of like a hunched over feeling. The operator or the pilot will be half seated, almost like on a motorcycle type of pose. And the whole thing needs to animate correctly. So I'm also looking at places where there might be animation issues. So it's a process. The Omniframe is, I would say, much more complicated than the Thumper. But at the same time, we hope to be a lot faster modeling it this time around because we're working on it more on a full-time basis. Base building, I'll get to that when we do the base building update. I'll talk more about how bases are built and what we're planning for those. But know that throughout a zone, one of the key things you'll be doing is deploying bases, and the way they deploy is very much like Halo Wars 1, where there's a platform that spawns and slots on that platform where you can raise buildings. The reason why an EMP works when you're fighting kaiju and animals is because you have to understand that the Tsihu are not in present time. If you read the lore update, you'll know that the Tsihu are actually imprisoned in a time loop many, many thousands of years ago. And what's happening is that the human presence here is causing the Tsihu to bleed through in sort of these dimensional warps. And so when you trigger the EMP, it's enough to momentarily destabilize it and stop them from spawning in all those ways. The Thumper. Okay, how much can you control the Thumper? Can I make it taunt my enemies, dance before my mother? More importantly, are they chased more by the kaiju with how much they're carrying? Okay, so the Thumper is more like the Hunter's Pet in WoW. You can have broad overall commands. You can drill. Yes, I want you to be able to trigger some emotes deliberately. It may do some on its own. I would like to give it its own standalone personality and AI for that. And as far as when the kaiju chase it, that's really when it's done drilling. I mean, the kaiju are always after this thing. So when you're done drilling and you're running back to base, everything's going to be chasing this thing. Uh, I don't know if we'll vary it by how much you're carrying or the worth of what you're carrying. That's an interesting problem. Maybe we will. Maybe that's a way we can achieve some sort of scaling. Okay, so the light Omniframe dual-wielding melee weapon ability isn't a bit contradictory that the least resisting frame goes the closest to the enemies. I'm not sure what least resisting frame means, but I can tell you the general idea I had behind that. And keep in mind that the Omniframe spec is completely up in the air right now. What you have is a pre-alpha spec that's subject to a lot of change, and part of the reason why I post it is so that I can get feedback and good questions like this. So the reason I gave the light Omniframe a dual melee capability was kind of to complement the medium frame's dual gun ability, as well as the heavy getting a shield. But what I had in my mind was this vision of, since melee weapons can penetrate shields easily, and light frames can basically have stealth and recon abilities and maybe even partial warping abilities. You could sort of like potentially warp in or cloak in, get close to an enemy, use your melee weapons on them to take down its armor, and jump back again. So that was the feeling behind giving the light frame the ability to sort of jump in and out with dual melee weapons. The proportions of the world. Um, will they be as big as Firefall or will they be larger? Okay, and you snuck in another question here. I'll get to that in a second. I'm planning on larger scale zones, at least the size of New Eden, and that would be sort of the scale of one invasion. Remember that, unlike Firefall, the main theme of Ember is really these sort of invasions and counter invasions that you do. You're taking over territory and reinforcing it against the Tsihu in order to terraform it through various stages. Meanwhile, the Tsihu and their kaiju are trying to invade your already established zones and take it over. Instead of the invasions playing out over a single town or city as they did in Firefall, they play out over the entire zone. It's sort of like when you logged into Firefall when the servers bounced and came back up. And when the servers came back up, it was all occupied by Chosen and you had to sweep them off the area. That way, the battle is really spread out across the zone, and hopefully we avoid some of those tremendous lag issues we had, as well as gameplay issues we had trying to concentrate all the battle in one town. Also in the Omnisuit, you get naked like Firefall. Soldier gets in frame naked, and frames give him abilities. Yeah, the pilot is really there for the human touch and the aesthetic. It's to show you that you're not just a robot playing this game. I have a philosophy that says people really connect more with human characters in the game than they do machines. And so this was my way of sort of blending the two. That said, I'm toying with the idea of giving the pilots certain traits so they could have expertise in certain areas and act as think of them as another plug-in to the Omniframe. They're just filling another slot. The pilot is filling the pilot slot, and the pilot slot, just like any upgrade or component, could have perks and abilities that add to the effectiveness of your frame. So that's an interesting idea that I'm still playing with, and I'm not entirely sure where we're going with that yet. Are you going to add microtransactions with actual functionality or go cosmetics and fun stuff? Primarily will be cosmetics. So we're going to be largely look driven. That's intended to pay for our server costs. The cost of running an online server is not cheap. When we ran Firefall on Amazon servers, it was quite expensive. But I would argue that running on Amazon servers was better than when they switched to dedicated machines that were in their closet or something. I don't know what they did. But yes, we do plan to sell cosmetics and fun stuff. We don't want to sell any power. Obviously, that was my rule in Firefall, and it's my rule here. That's why we're charging a upfront fee for the game. It's at a indie price, somewhere in the upper indie range, and that pays for any development costs that we have that haven't been accounted for, as well as gives us the momentum we need to go into operating a full service and servers. And then from then on, hopefully additional updates and cosmetics carry us forward. Did I miss his navalness? No, his navalness is present, answering questions. I am on voice though, so maybe it's time to repost that to people, Ronan, and let people know how to get into voice. Will there be small consumable missions like the Ares job? I liked how as you progress through the jobs, you got more serious tasks as you prove yourself. Again, we're not starting as a MMO. This isn't really like how Firefall tried to be everything in an online game. It had missions, it had raids, it had invasions, and everything else. No, we're much smaller, probably out of necessity and budget. We have like virtually no budget to speak of. We have the backing of our generous backers, which have allowed us to get as far as we have. But we have to be very careful about the feature set that we go forward with, and we don't want to overpromise. So no missions are planned. Initially, it's really a game about jumping into maps and fighting invasions and sweeping Tihu off the map and defending existing areas around Tihu and terraforming those areas up so that you can tech up. And when you reach a certain stage, hopefully with additional backer support, we're launching updates to this in an episodic nature where we will continue to tell the overall backstory of the Tihu and the Gate Striders and their struggle here on this planet and opening up new areas to conquer and new things to craft and slot into your battle frames. Will the Thumper have a basket or storage container to stick resources in, or will it just store it in its hammer space inventory? Um, Worst case, the Thumper is going to have magic pants where you can just put anything in there. I don't know if you guys ever played LucasArts Monkey Island, but there's a funny animation of Guybrush Threepwood opening his pants and putting a ladder down there or whatever large object couldn't possibly fit. Best case, we'll figure something out. If it's symbolic, like the Thumper just carries a large rock in his hand, or if we use a floating mag basket that we have in the concept art that floats behind it, we'll figure out some way to represent the resources that the Thumper is carrying. But I think for gameplay reasons, expect it more to be on the symbolic side than the practical side. What's the deal with the leveling system? I.e., what is the max? Is there a change when reaching a specific level? I'm going to talk about that for another update when we talk about how tiers work. But I will say that we are not a level-based system. Firefall went through several phases. They had levels, then we took them out, and then we went tiers, and they took them out, and then they went constraints and levels. We're sticking with tiers, and I have a very specific idea of how tiers will work both on a meta level as well as the player level. And that's for a future update. Got any plan for instances? How will they work if they exist? Yes, yes. Not so much for, not instances for raids or anything like that. As I said before, this is an invasion game. It's more like playing a persistent Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 1942 online with really large maps and a large number of players. But instead of player versus player, it's player versus AI-controlled Sihu. When we do instances, think about them more as how will we handle overcapacity in invasions if we get too many players in an area. And I'm basically going to borrow from World of Warcraft. What we're going to do there is we're going to phase you seamlessly. So you and your group will be playing along. When you enter the invasion as it's currently happening, we might basically split you off into your own phase and do it in a very seamless way, much like how the invasions worked for the last upgrade for World of Warcraft. Possible art animation tools for the community to help lower the cost of game development with Dev Review. Um, that's a double-edged sword because creating and supporting the art and animation tools is a time sink and expense of itself. And one thing I learned is, we're such a small team and many of us are just part-time that we really need to focus where our efforts are. So um, I think if people want to create assets for the game, there's already so many ways to do that for Unreal, existing pipelines out there, that creating our own probably doesn't make sense. At the same time, that makes the bar pretty high for people being able to contribute. And I don't like to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to say no to anybody if I'm rejecting art, but that's the other thing I worry about. So I'm not sure yet. I'd like to source art if people want to volunteer, but I also hate to say no to anybody. And but going to the next question of mods, it's like mods are an interesting question. We may do a form of mods. Now, I'm going to say that for another update because I have something that I like to talk about how servers will run. But I know mods are an important part. I mean, the most successful indie games that have the longest lifespan do support mods. Well, how do you support mods in an MMO where everyone's got to play the same game? That's an interesting problem. I might have an idea on that. If it pans out, you'll definitely hear about it in an update, and it will go into the Vision doc. Theoretically only, but now that Playtronic let JonTron go, would you be open to John voicing stuff for Ember? Oh, political topic. Okay, well, I think people know my politics and think that JonTron is largely a victim of a witch hunt. He's definitely said some things to fan the flames himself, probably to a degree that didn't need to be said. But, they weren't employing him. He already got paid for his work, so I don't think they let him go in that sense. Uh, but if John wanted to do voices for our game, I have no problem with that politically. I don't believe all the BS that's out there about him. Have you put a lot of thought into the resources of the game? Will that be part of the vision book? Firefall had many revamps to resources, but I always loved the original. Yeah, part of what I discovered writing the Omniframe update was that there was so much that we had done over the years of Firefall that I already had a pretty good idea what I liked and didn't like about the Omniframe or the frame system there, and it made it very easy to sort of write the Omniframe update. So I'm hoping it goes that well with resources as well. I've been giving that a lot of thought. There's versions I like. I tend to not like a bajillion different types of resources out there. I don't even think that's necessary. I preferred it when it was fewer types of resources, but I do have additional thoughts on that, and that will be coming out on the resource update. John Galt asks, when is the basic server test with the UE4 mannequin? Okay, so this is not part of our milestone and not part of what the backers supported, but we went out and we were lucky enough to hire Ikiator, who was a server programmer on one of the biggest WoW emulated servers out there. And he's been working on a way that we can do really low cost servers with very low latency and fast response time, because I definitely want melee to be a part of this game. It's mechs versus kaiju. There's got to be hand to hand. I mean, we want things thrown around. We want you to stab these things in the neck. So we're doing a separate test that's not a part of the build. We have the server running, the test version with our code modifications on Amazon right now, and we're currently building a client that's just going to use the regular Unreal demo level to go in there and test shooting and its impact on CPU and memory. I don't have a date for that yet, but I just opened the ports up this weekend, so hopefully soon. You've stressed before this isn't an MMO. How many people will be playing together on one map? Oh, someone scrolled my screen. Told you not to do that. Okay, so scale the game. I have no idea how many people we're going to allow on a map because it all depends on the cost of the server and our tests to do some very innovative things to make server loads extremely light compared to traditional MMOs. That said, it's not just the server that constrains the number of players on screen. It's also your your graphics engine and your rendering pipeline, and we just don't know the limits of Unreal yet. That said, if we hit certain limits, the way that Legion did invasions and its very transparent phasing is the way that I'm looking as a safety valve to handle that if we get into a situation where we have to divvy up players. But I never want to hit that lag problem that we did with Firefall when people were shard hopping and they all hopped into the same shard with an invasion and everybody had a bad time because of the lag. Okay, try to go a little slower, guys, because I'm having trouble keeping up with the questions as they scroll off my screen. And since we're shooting video, I don't want to scroll back. Um, can you customize your thumper, like the body, the drill, the armor, and effects? Like, hey, you got this golden drill. Probably, uh, that's a wishy-washy answer. The thumper will have different skins. The skins for thumper are something that we're going to be selling as cosmetics, and we've already did a sort of like a theme skin for backers on the last milestone. So we'll concept that out and get that posted up at some point. But yes, there will be different looks to your thumper, but it's not going to be something like Firefall where you customize it. We're definitely going for cost reasons and for business reasons, actually, because it works very well to keep costs down and to also generate a revenue stream to go with more of a skin model. Next question. I support your game. I'm all sexy like, and people gush about me all the time. How can I provide you with my voice, body, etc.? Wow. Okay. So we have a basically a sell your soul type proposition here. I remember when I did the Diablo 2 beta, I asked for people's souls. So I don't know what I'm going to ask for Firefall, right? I mean for Ember right now. But if you have skills, let me know. You can DM me. You can see I get a lot of messages in my sidebar here. I still need to go through all of those. But you can also tweet at me on my Twitter account, and I'm very responsive. To repair a damaged Omniframe, will it require more than just conventional currency? Will you need to put in special resources used to initially build the frame as well? Secondly, might there be permanent item breakage? And if so, is there a free fallback frame? Unlike Firefall, there will be no permanent breakage. I think that was not a good idea. I defended my team's decision to do that at the time, but it was a mistake. So you will put resources and have to spend resources into repairing it. I'm not sure yet, for example, if some frames require or some components require rare resources, how we're going to handle that. I think there might be a lower cost to repair than it was to build in the first place. That's an interesting question because what does lower cost mean? Does it mean you can use more common resources to repair it, or that you just need less of the more rare types? And that I don't know yet. I'll know when I start writing that part of the doc. Astro, if you missed the answer to your resource question, this is on video. I'm recording it right now, and we will post the video here on Monday. Basically, in Firefall, they made ER system that is really awesome because when there was not ER, you get XP that goes nowhere. Now you have XP even after level cap. So in tiers, when you reach max and you're still playing the game, you'll probably get XP or it'll be changed to something else. That's a good question because I'm not even sure there will be XP traditionally in Ember. The way that tiers are going to function and the way that people progress through tiers is a little bit different and kind of ties into the metagame update that I'll be tackling at a later time. How is the optimization of the game going? You know, when Firefall DirectX 9 arrived and using only one core even though it's an MMO. Well, thankfully, we're using the Unreal Engine, so we get to run with whatever optimizations they have, and they're much more multi-threaded than Firefall was. At some point, we'll probably, later in development, have to freeze the version of the Unreal Engine we're working on, but that's far in the foreseeable future because it takes a couple of years to build a game like this. I don't anticipate freezing the version of Unreal at any time. But that's also a good point. It's way too early to optimize the game. For example, what we're doing right now to get the art demos out and the mock-ups up that we'll be using for a future Launch the Company Kickstarter, we're just using Blueprints, which is a high-level visual scripting language for Unreal that isn't as fast as programming things in C++. The plan is that after that stage, if we have a successful start the company full-time Kickstarter, what we will do is we will go out and hire engine programmers and start porting everything into C++. Well, most everything, like encounter scripts and stuff, will probably still remain blueprints for ease of iteration. But if at some final point it's a bottleneck, we'll optimize those into C++ as well. Will there be, for heavy frame, a one-time use mini nuke? Why the fuck not? I mean, I love nukes in StarCraft. That was one of my favorite moments. So, yeah, maybe there will be a mini nuke. That's a great idea. I'd love to entertain that, especially if you're, for example, maybe you need special authorization. Um, when major invasions happen, the monstrous kaiju aren't going to always show up, but when they do show up, you could have like a category 4 kaiju come in, and then you might be authorized to use mini nukes. Who knows? That could be a pretty cool scenario. So I like that idea. Yeah, big explosions. John Galt has the right idea on currency to the wrong person. That's all I'm going to say. What will towns be like? If you have any idea about the blacksmiths and shit, Um, yes. No, we're not gonna have blacksmiths. This is a sci-fi game. Will there be NPCs? I don't know yet. These bases and facilities, they're meant to be useful to everybody. The first way that bases are useful to everyone is the nearest base is the shortest route that you have to escort your thumper. So people are encouraged to build bases so they can get to a close by area without having to do a long escort mission for the thumper and risk having it destroyed and losing everything. There will be other benefits to these bases and facilities. I'm not sure what they are yet, but NPCs, I can see NPCs happening. Will there be a crafting system? Yes, everything in the game is crafted. Your frames are crafted. Your upgrades are crafted. And I kind of hinted at this in the document on Omniframe, but while there are stock Omniframes that you can just buy at the start of the game, eventually you'll unlock the ability to craft your own frame. When you do this, there's a sort of balanced sliders system you can use to choose between more power, more speed, and things like this. And when you move that slider, it's going to calculate the resource cost and list the resources needed. So instead of you having to throw resources in and seeing what results you get and figuring it out, the crafting system is going to work a little backwards. You sort of specify what you would like for the balance. It's going to spit out the resources, and then you're going to have a resource tracker that keeps track of what resources you need when you're out in the field and lets you know when you have enough to craft certain items. Stupid question. Is kaiju taken from Pacific Rim? No. Kaiju is a Japanese term that's been around for a long, long time, since Godzilla days. So, no, we took it from Japan. I actually grew up in Japan for several years. I watched Ultraman in the theaters, if you can believe that. So, no, it's definitely inspired more by my childhood. Pacific Rim has a very different feel. I'm more inspired, I would say, by things like Attack on Titan than I am by Pacific Rim. I do use Pacific Rim as a reference because people know and understand it a lot. But our mechs and kaiju are not going to be that big because, from a practical standpoint, nobody likes staring at feet all the time and on their screen when things are that big. Can you do mod-specific service like running with rifles? I answered the mod question earlier in a very evasive way. That's because I have an idea I want to work out. I want a way to support mods. It's interesting how to do that in an MMO setting. Have I played the 1990s PC game X-Wing? I really like your power allocation system between shields, lasers, and engines. Yes, it is one of my favorite games of all time. And I actually met the lead designer at GDC one year, Larry Holland, and we had a long talk about it. I love the power allocation system there. I really wanted to bring it back. It was a little fiddly because in X-Wing you could really just micromanage it, and most of the time you were just dumping power into one system or another. So I simplified it for Omniframes, and it's just a one key press thing to prioritize where the power goes. For those of you that really want more finesse and control over it, you can craft a power shunt. A power shunt lets you predefine your own settings for how you would like power to be dumped to those different systems. And the way that that works is basically in an Omniframe, you can prioritize defensive abilities. Or you could prioritize attack abilities, or you could prioritize movements abilities, and you can get a boost to those systems depending on how much power you divert into them at the expense of weakening the other two. And that's how the power system generally works. Torg, I think you're going to have nukes. Maybe, I don't think you need to worry about that because that's really cool. I'd love to see a nuke go off when there's a giant kaiju on screen. Because I mean, if you're fighting Godzilla, how can you not try nuclear weapons? I mean, that just seems natural to me. Will there be abilities that block you from installing certain other abilities? Like if you have ability A, you can't install ability B. If you have B, etc. Yes and no. I tried to avoid that as much as possible by having the light, medium, and heavy frames. This is a way of saying, this is effectively the same thing, where there's a common pool of upgrades that work for all three. So there's like a universal donor set of abilities and upgrades. They have different power requirements. So some upgrades might be more suitable for the heavy that has a lot more power than say the light frames, and some you might be able to collect a lot of the lighter ones because the light frame has more slots available than the heavy in order to equip stuff. That's really the same thing. I could have just said there's one frame and color code the components as A, B, and or lettered them as A, B, and C, and say that you can't mix them because there's exclusive upgrades for the heavy, exclusive for the medium, and exclusive for the light. But I thought that this was a much more understandable and robust way of communicating those limitations to players while trying to keep it as simple as possible. Firefall had a lot of ideas about craftability and what you can slot and limits and constraints that ended up being very complex to convey to players. And so I'm really working hard to make sure that a lot of that is presented, even though it's the same effect, it's presented in a way that's a lot easier to digest and visually to understand. Will the skimming mechanics be similar to skiing in PlanetSide 2? No. Skimming is really, for the Omniframe, just to revisit that, there's a couple primary modes of transport. The Omniframe can glide. You can get from a high distance to a low distance and deploy your wings and kind of glide down, just like you can in Firefall. It has jump jet abilities, so you can get up in the air, and unlike Firefall, there will be more of a strategy to using jump jets because in order to attack these kaiju, these larger kaiju, which have technology like shield generators and implants along their spine, you're going to have to get above them in order to shoot down at those. So you may not be able to damage a kaiju until you get through its shields, for example. A good way to do that would be to get altitude and fire down on those things. The other mode is skimming, and what skimming is really bikes in Firefall. It's really point-to-point travel, and it's taken from an anime called Maddox 01, which was in the 80s, one of my favorite mecha animations. In fact, the Omniframe derives some inspiration from that. And the wings will lock open, and your feet will hover off the ground as your jetpacks sort of propel you across the terrain. And you'll be able to do this for long distances, so you can get in and out of battle quickly at different hotspots. If I'm not mistaken, you said that enemies can still attack a thumper when it's returning to base. Is there any plan to make a trip back more consistent or limit event invasion spawns in that area so people don't pull back their thumpers, fire EMPs in an identical situation, and lose all their work because a tornado giant kaiju appeared? Um, that's a good question. I don't know how much collision there will be between players because they'll all be running back to the same base. I'm going to scroll back here because you guys are. Please remember to let questions be answered before they scroll off the top of the screen so I can keep up with everyone. Just hold your question in reserve until you see some space open up. Let me catch up here on a couple new things. So um, it might actually be fun if you're both running back to the base and you're helping each other fight kaiju along the way. One of the things that I've always wanted for Firefall and that will be implemented for Ember is that the server game designer AI, which is the very grand name for a very simple script, is going to be aware of how much it's spawning in any given situation. So if we're overwhelming players, it's definitely going to pull back on it. We don't want to cause a situation where people can train each other with returning thumpers and cause a big snarl up situation. So we'll try to auto balance it along the way. Okay, in games such as Halo 5, you can get one-use power-ups such as enhanced speed and visibility. Would that work for a brief time? Could we see a system like this in Ember where we could create temporary boosts for our Omniframes that burn up quickly after use? Interesting question. Will there be consumables, basically, in Ember? Right now, I don't see a need for them, but once we get the basics in, the basic systems in, abilities and basic upgrades, there might be room for boosts. They could be really fun to have temporary enhancements, but I'm not sure yet because a lot of those cross over directly with abilities that we're planning for the game. Will you be able to upgrade drills and other stuff? Right now, the Thumper is not slated to be upgradable. Only the Omniframe is, but I think that that is going to become a more and more requested feature. So that's an issue that I would like to revisit. I really want to look at upgradability of the Thumper, which might make a lot more sense because we did have larger and bigger Thumpers in Firefall. It might make more sense to let you slot certain things or upgrade Thumpers in certain ways. Is there going to be plenty of references to other video games via cosmetics or places in the Ember world, along with the obligatory Firefall reference, probably a tombstone? Oh, and and Torg isn't on chat. I'm transmitting the info to him. Why is he not on chat? Oh well. Oh, and 40K reference, please. Well, gee, that's really up to the other IP holders, isn't it? I like Easter eggs. I like references. Where we can, you'll probably see a couple. Um, potential to license stuff, that's pretty far-fetched unless the game is really popular. In which case, if the game is really popular, I'd have no problem approaching people and asking for certain things. 40K, they're really touchy. They don't even like having pictures of their stuff on the web, so I have no idea what they'll approve. Are you contemplating having a player market, or is crafting just for your own account? Right now, it's just for your own account. We don't have a lot of back-end support yet for player-to-player trade or anything like that. So I would say that that would be a future update past launch because we really have to be careful on our resource allocation and our features. My question was more about combining abilities with a friend for more effective attack. Oh, I do like that. I mean, I'm a big Chrono Trigger fan. I love abilities that combo. So yeah, I think you can expect me to at least play with the idea in testing of having abilities that can combo with each other, letting you set up attacks and things like that. I think that would be interesting. We'll see if it's fun. If it's fun, we'll continue to develop it. If it's not fun, we'll probably put the resources into something else. Will you make this game difficulty like Dark Souls? Because I like to see my allies get destroyed or murdered. But your allies in this case are other players. They're not your NPC characters. Um, I'm not sure the level of punishment that's going to be in the game. I think it's definitely going to be not as casual as some of the games out there right now, but I'm not sure entirely how difficult I'm going to make it. I need to be able to appeal to not a wide audience because this game is really designed as a niche game, but definitely don't want to frustrate even the majority of players, even if they might be skill based. What there might be is a way to stand out if you're exceptionally skillful. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about the skill part of the update, how we're going to make a game that can emphasize skill and reward skill, but that's still approachable by people who and maybe aren't as skilled but still want to join you and play with you and you want to get your friends into the game as well. All right. Um, I have a question. The two major packs that Firefall had, the Bumblebee and the Rocket packs, will be something like that to compensate these players for what they did to those packs. What did they do to those packs? And what was the Bumblebee and Rocket pack? You can say you can say it here. I don't remember those. Do you mean like rocket launchers? Okay, while I'm waiting for that, I'll answer these questions. What are your requirements about volunteers who want to be part of the team? I tend to approach people first. I hate to turn fans away who supply stuff. So here's what I would recommend. Maybe Ronan can create a portfolio section on the forums and you can post your stuff there. And if I see something that I think is really cool, I can contact them directly. so that, I can say, hey, I see you're really good at Unreal Particles. We could really use that. Or, hey, I see you've got some great modeling ability. Could really use that. Or, oh, I love that, Unreal script you did. Why don't we talk? I would prefer that I contact you because I don't have a lot of time to go through a lot of submissions, but I can browse, one section on our forums. And this way I don't have to publicly turn anyone down too, because I appreciate everybody's willingness to help. Obviously, we want to hit a pretty high bar for an indie game here. We're not AAA, but I want to hit a high bar for indie game here, and I'm looking for people who are able to do that in a number of areas. Will achievements be a thing? Will they unlock different things or just bragging rights? No plans for an achievement system right now. That's, uh, I would say, a nice to have, not a must have. And right now we're really focused on the must haves. The must haves that we have to have for um, the upcoming Kickstarter, which will be a couple milestones from now, is to get our human models made, to get our weapon systems made, to get the Tihu modeled, the beast form of the Tihu modeled, and to get a scenario together where we can actually do a complete thumper encounter from start to finish. And that will be the bare minimum we need, I think, to do a Start the Company Kickstarter. After that, we're still also going to be very frugal with our features. We're going to concentrate on invasions. We're going to everything supporting that. I don't see achievements as being a need to have feature for invasions to be fun. But leaderboards, on the other hand, I think are important. I think it's, especially in a skill-based game, people want to demonstrate their rank and everything else. I think that would be an important feature. Okay, next question. As far as I may consider, because I've been playing a WildStar a lot lately. Wow, WildStar. I haven't played that in a while. Is it possible the game may have quirky personalities here and there? As in, like, you reach a new area and there's an announcer going, a complete war zone, allies becoming new enemies, and everyone fighting each other. Will you join the fray or become meat to the fryer? Triple the threat, triple the corpses, do the math. That reminds me of big money, big prizes. No, I don't really think that sort of announcer funny thing fits the vibe of Ember as much as it does a more fun art style game like WildStar. Ember has a very sort of realistic look to it, but at the same time, humor is important. A lot of the pets and stuff will be cute and fun, and there will be pets. I want pets that that ride your thumper shoulder. I want pets that ride your Omniframe shoulder, and they can be cute. But I don't think we'll have a zone-wide sort of MC announcer calling out the battle. I think the fight against the Tsihu is a serious topic. Okay, bring back Arrow. Well, we'll probably bring back Laura and have her do some voice acting for us, like she did on the intro. But Arrow is not going to be back in the form that she was. I don't own Arrow. Arrow belongs to someone else. We'll have to think about what we're going to do. Will the Kaiju attack on the return be a part of the thumping demo? I assume not, because it will require modeling animating Kaiju. Maybe a fundraising bonus if reached. Very good, Astro. We don't have the budget for a Kaiju attack on return. I really want to get it in there. It would be a good, maybe final stretch goal for the demo. That would be a good stretch goal to have. I would love to have it, but it'd be very difficult to pull off at this point. We have a lot to model. Okay. Will we have add-on API to UI mods? I've answered the mod question before. You can watch the video for the answer, but basically mods are important to indie games, and I'd like to figure out a way to do that, but it's really hard to do that in a game that has a sort of standard MMO setting and episodic content that comes out. But I might have an idea on that. I'm not sure. If I got something, I'll share it with you in an update. Something that everyone wants to know on the forums in here: when can we start throwing money at the screen? Well, I want to first start delivering all the stuff that we've promised from the last fundraiser. So we have the 3D thumpers being printed. I'm holding one in my hand. I've been cleaning off the models and getting them ready for assembly. The updates that we're posting on gameplay and the lore, that's all going into the PDF and the printed version of the vision book. I have some additional art that's going in there too. Some of it is from Crixa, the tabletop version, the universe that the game is set in. And of course, we have the art demo for the Thumper and the art demo for the Omniframe. So until those are in, I would say we're not ready to do another fundraiser. But at the same time, I've I wasn't ready to talk about this. I've gone ahead and spec'd additional work. So we've been working on some other stuff that I can't talk about yet. And so, and I did this because I wanted the time between milestones to be much shorter. So I want them to be much closer to 2 months than they are right now. So there's a bunch of reasons why this one took as long as it did, and I'll do a post-mortem post about that later. But as of now, we're not accepting money. We might launch after the Thumper demo. We'll probably launch a Patreon because a lot of people have been asking for that, and that'll give you access to certain things and Skype sessions with me and that sort of thing. That would be, I guess, the next opportunity. And then after the Omniframe art demo, then you'll have an opportunity to do the human character milestone after that. The Q&A is being recorded. I am recording it right now. It will be posted on Monday. Cutscenes. I don't know if that was a question. It scrolled off my screen. I just see the response here. Not planning any cutscenes. They're really expensive and time consuming to do. And I am modeling our characters so that I do plan on modeling our characters so that they're capable of it, but I don't know if we're actually going to have any in the game. Like I said, we're really super focused because of our budget and constraints on delivering the main feature set of the game first. Oh, look at that. I'm caught up on the question queue. Fire away, guys. Several people are typing. It's so ominous. Are you worried at all about the escort prospect of thumping? It seems like a lot of games struggle to get that right. Firewall had tons of issues. Yeah, I am worried about it. It's always an issue. First of all, pathing is an issue. So if we don't have a good pathing system, that's going to make escorting a mess. If escort routes are really long, that's an issue too. If thumpers get stuck and hung up on objects and have to warp to you, nobody likes to see that in game. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we have to figure out with escorts. There's also a lot of things we can do as a sort of backup plan or fallback plan for escorts if that doesn't work out. But definitely something to consider. Yes, it is challenging. We're going to have our hands full with that. That said, there are escort quests that work really well in other games and don't have a lot of technical issues. So we'll see when we hit that point. Favorite type of burrito? Well, I don't eat burritos anymore. I have lost 45 pounds now, and I'm gaining muscle too at the same time. So I look completely different, and hopefully you guys see that in the video updates soon. But no more burritos for me. Even on cheat days, I don't even crave burritos. I go for a steak instead or something like that. In terms of arsenal, how many types of weapons, rocket launchers, flag cannons, miniguns, AR, shotguns, sniper rifles, etc., can we expect to see? I'm hoping quite a few. I'm hoping to do on the art side, to keep the cost down, a modular system that we've already started speccing out with Tommaso that will allow the art team to create a lot of different weapon looks in order to facilitate a large range of weapon types. But I'm still unsure about how that's going to work. I want to make sure that having a lot of variety of weapons actually makes sense. This won't be like Borderlands where we randomly generate weapons and their looks from modular system. The modular system is more for the artists and the art pipeline, and then that will allow us to create a bigger variety of weapon systems. There are handheld weapons, there are guns, there are melee weapons in the game because melee is a big part of the theme of mech versus kaiju. I think it's important to have that physical contact when you're fighting monsters. And there are shoulder-mounted weapons as well. I do like Macross-style rocket launchers, so I'd love to see that in the game. Will I accept free voice actors if they came to me? Again, this is a good question. I think we should have uh, maybe a Notice Me Senpai portfolio section on our forums where you could submit your voice portfolio and stuff, and I'll call you mainly because I don't want to turn down anybody who calls me. I just don't like to do that to people. Will you be able to play as the pilots themselves, like in Titanfall? Titanfall, you know, are where the mechs are a minority of your gameplay. They're like a highlight moment, a special moment. Ember, the mechs are the majority of your gameplay. It's more of a vehicle game. It's more about diverting powers to different systems and what you're doing. And so, you'll be able to play as the pilots, but I really, right now, I'm envisioning it more as an emergency situation where your thumper is destroyed, but you've ejected, and you're waiting for your, not your thumper, your Omniframe's destroyed, and you're waiting to hop into your next Omniframe that's going to drop from the drop ship at any second, and you're just trying to run around and survive until that time. So maybe it's really kind of your death mode. Like there's a chance to escape death in the game because you can hop out and run around as a pilot and not get stomped by a kaiju until you get into your next Omniframe. Okay, Omniframe systems. You mentioned Omniframe systems can go down when damaged, such as the inability to jetpack, a limping walk, etc. Might that be when the pilot needs to go out and repair the systems? Could act as a little mini event. Yeah, that's another interesting thing. Maybe if you do suffer a critical attack, if you have, we talked about this earlier, where pilots could have their own skills and abilities. And maybe there's a jury rig system, is what you're proposing, where you can hop out and kind of like duct tape your Omniframe back together again. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Yes, Notice Me Senpai. That's a good name for the thread. I just thought of that out of the blue. I don't know. Will there be many engineer type abilities like deployable turrets, shields, healing pads, external generators, etc.? Yes, Ars Nova, there will be. That is one of the ways you can spec out your light Omniframe, is to go the more deployable engineer route. I also would like to see little mobile turret robots like we had in the cinematic of Firefall, but never actually had in the game. This is a game going to be having a faster tempo compared with Firefall. Firefall was actually fairly fast, but I'm going for more Doom 4 type of speed. So I'm hoping that it's actually pretty rapid. The Tihu, when they're in beast mode, are going to move extremely fast. So that's going to be difficult because they're going to be hard to hit. And when they close to melee, they're going to shred through your shields too, because melee attacks, shields don't really protect very well against melee attacks. Damage can bleed through right to your armor and hit your health after the armor is depleted. Unreal 5, Unity, Crytek, etc. What engine are you using? Have it been having a ton of issues with Unity-based games of late? We are using Unreal. We are on Unreal 4 right now, and we haven't frozen the version yet because we're very early in pre-development. So will we be on Unreal 5? I don't even know if that's announced yet. But I would say probably, since it'll be a couple of years before the game's complete. I'm hoping 2 to 3 years, and so but playable before that. You guys will get to play it before that if you're back in the game. So yes, we're on the Unreal Engine, and it's a lot easier to use than our engine for Firefall. I'll tell you that much. About the Thumper inventory question asked earlier, how about a pocket dimension storage that takes as much space as 10 smokes pack but can hold a ton of stuff? How does that sound? Yeah, that's what I call magic pants. So the Thumper may have magic pants, and that's where he holds his resources. Repair in the middle of a fight is asking for death. Yeah, that's where your teammates have to cover for you. It's like, hey, I got to take a break, hide behind this rock, and fix my Omniframe. I don't know how that's going to work out yet. But I definitely want you to be able to jump out of the Omniframe, at least for those panic moments where you have to eject at the last moment and call down your next Omniframe or wait for it to be repaired sufficiently to be dropped back into battle. Do I like the show Rick and Morty? I don't watch it. I see all the memes about it. I do not understand them. I'm sorry. Will custom community-made reskins be possible? Again, supporting art tools, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into that, even websites and uploading systems and everything else. So I don't know if we will get around to that initially for the launch of the game, and definitely not for any of the demos. Doom 2016, is it possible to be some amazing industrial tracks in the game? Okay, this is where you're either going to love it or hate it. In the game, I love electric guitar. I play electric guitar. I don't care if it's metal. I don't care if it's rock and roll. I don't, I loved it in Halo, for example. So I do like having a guitar in a shooter-based game. So industrial, I don't know if there's much electric guitar in industrial music. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really listen to industrial, but definitely more of a driving rock theme is what I'm going for. And I'm working on something because we're kind of a Japanese-inspired game. We even have, Japanese in our logo. If I can swing it, I might have a sort of anime intro to the game, but I'm not sure yet. Accidental copyright infringement with Firefall. Well, good for you, Lightning Shock. I am a law graduate. I have a law degree with a specialty in intellectual property law, including copyrights and trademarks, and I am very cognizant of when we might be straying into trouble and when we have fair use and independent development. So, I think that, copyright, for example, protects the expression of an idea, not the idea themselves. So we have a lot of leeway, actually, to express some of the core concepts of Firefall, especially the older ones that they don't even use anymore. And I'm pretty good at, not getting into crossing legal lines because of my background. All right, Torque, we'll catch you later. Okay, we are at the 3 o'clock mark, so this is time for last questions. I'll take a couple more here, and then we'll wrap, and I'll start processing the video over the weekend. The drop jump out of an Omniframe when it's 2 damage to fight sounds a little Titanfall-like. Sure, it's a great mechanic. Why not use it? More Chinese restaurants like in Firefall. Yeah, food was a big theme in Firefall. And if we ever get around to towns, not just bases and facilities, um, I think you can expect some Japanese influence in this case because we're a kaiju game. Any ideas for a dual melee only mode? I'm not sure what that means, but everybody wants to duel in their Omniframes, so I'm probably going to enable that. There won't be a PvP mode in the game, but if you want to duel somebody and see what one Omniframe does to another, that actually helps us devs too as a testing method. So yeah, I think duel is something we could do. Don't expect any balance though, because we're balanced against NPCs. There's probably really cheesy stuff that you can do against Kaiju that players would hate if you pulled off on them. So don't complain to me if somebody does that to you in a duel. Are there plans to cut costs by purchasing cheap assets and mechanics from the UE marketplace, or even earn development money by selling any? I don't plan to sell any of the assets on the marketplace because I don't want people putting out stuff there that like the Thumper and things like that are very iconic to our game. If we do doodads and things like that, maybe. I don't know how much money people actually make off the marketplace, so I'd have to look into that to see if it's even worthwhile. As far as purchasing assets, yeah, we'll probably purchase some assets. I don't know what they are yet, but I'm also keeping the asset count as low as I can. So hopefully, if we do have to purchase assets, we don't have to do that many. For curiosity's sake, for heavy Omniframes, what would they be specialized in terms of combat? Well, heavy Omniframes are really, your hard hitters. They have fewer slots for upgradability, but they carry a lot more power. So they can equip sort of fewer, bigger weapon systems, fewer, bigger ability systems, and they really pack a lot of punch and are probably going to be much more useful against large kaiju. So, you could have kaiju killers, potential spec heavies. You could have heavies that specialize more in AoE style attacks against swarms if you have a lot of little, um, you know, kaiju lights running around, that sort of thing. And high explosives and probably the nuclear option that we were joking about, half joking about with Tord. Why Unreal Engine? I've used Unity a little bit and I've used Unreal a little bit, and I really like the render quality of Unreal much more than Unity, although Unity's made great strides in that since I've used it. I don't like Unity's scripting language as much. I prefer to use blueprints and then do everything in C++ directly. So that's kind of why we're going with Unreal. Possible time frame for next milestone and what milestones may that encompass? So um, Omniframe was a stretch goal, and we're delivering the Thumper art demo here as rapidly as I can. We have um, the base animations all done, so we're just now figuring out how to do the animation blend graph in Unreal and hook that up in the way we want, how to get the terrain ready to the point I want it to be, the quality level I want it to be, and little extras, like maybe we'll have time for sound effects too. So I'm hoping that that comes out here as soon as possible. We're not talking about ages here. I'm talking about, weeks at most. So I definitely want to get that out there. After that, we're probably going to do the Patreon is one way that you can support the game. People have been asking for that. And then I'll think about, the stretch goal of the Omniframe. Do we want to start the next fundraiser before the Omniframe is out? Maybe we'll put that as a poll up on the forums because I know a lot of people want to get in and experience these XEs that we're putting out. Lizard People bathroom signs. That was one of the races that never made it into Firefall. I'm bummed about that. But yeah, no, I don't know if we'll have bathrooms in Ember. That's a nice to have, not a need to have in a fantasy world where digital characters don't have the need to go to the bathroom. Any plans for Asia across the Pacific? Yes. One way that we might get additional funding for the game is to pre-license the game to Asian partners as a way to get a larger budget to do more with the game. That I don't know yet. It's still really early, but we do not currently have the resources to localize and deploy into Asia. Customizable mini nukes, like hydrogen mini nukes or ion ones. I don't know. We're just entertaining the idea of nukes to begin with, which is a pretty big if in many games, to have something like that. So I don't know if we can even go beyond that and specialize in which exact type of nuke you can use. Training area would be possible for testing your weapons. Don't know. It really depends on time and cost. Training areas are nice to have, especially in a game where you can craft different stuff and you may want to try out different upgrades in your Omniframe. I think that that is a really nice thing to be able to offer players, but I'm not sure we can cover those costs yet and develop that. Heavy Omniframes would be like a B-52 Stratofortress, and medium would be more like an A-10. Yeah, I would say that's pretty comparable. Mediums have a lot of high firepower on their own, but they can't deliver high explosive damage or things like that. Okay, guys, it is 3:06. I wanted to thank you all for coming to this cheap chat and for all your support and everything you guys have done so far, and all the volunteers as well who have contributed. It's been amazing, and I hope you like our weekly Friday updates now. We're trying to update you much more often. We've picked up a lot of speed in game development because we finally have a full team, animators, everything else, server programmer. So things are going much faster than they were, and I want to keep it that way. So thanks again for visiting. We will keep you posted, and a video of this will be available on the website and the forums on Monday after I'm done processing it and uploading it. Thank you all, and I will see you soon.